wherever you're joining us for today's online event, Digital Supply Chain Twins. My name is Nicole Bamford, and I'm the moderator for today's session. On behalf of the Industrial Transformation Network team, we thank you for joining us today. This discussion, The Future of Digital Supply Chain Twins, Evaluating the Long-Term Potential of Digital Twin Adoption, will be presented by Jan de Nijs, LM Fellow, Enterprise Digital Production at Lockheed Martin, and Sehadri Guha, CEO and co-founder, TADA Cognitive Solutions. And their presentation promises to be well worth the listen. Before we get started, here are some quick administrative points. During the webinar, if you experience any technical issues, please write them into the Q&A section and our team will get to them right away. You will notice the widgets on your screen can be resized and dragged around for your viewing preferences. So now that you've got everything, make sure you're sitting comfortably, and I'll now hand it over to Guha so we can begin.
Thanks, Nicole, for the kind introduction. It's my privilege and honor to be here with Jan from Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin has an extraordinarily complex product, great supply chain, a great company. And I know Jan is a leader in the supply chain space, and it's my pleasure to be able to talk to Jan today. And again, I think before we kick this off, I have a lot of questions for Jan today. I'd like to understand how he thinks about the world and what he's seen in his experience across manufacturing and supply chain. But I think I want to kind of make a few quick comments before I start with questions to Jan. First, just at a personal level, I think many of us think of supply chains as industrial problems, business problems. Truly, supply chains for me are human problems, right? When we don't have vaccines and diapers, right? Or when we can't deliver food to parts of Africa, that's a human problem. And so the supply chain problems we deal with and a lot of the solutions we talk about today are very important as we go from 7 billion people to 10 billion people. I always feel that's the most important part of everything. And especially, of course, if you like sriracha sauce and you can't get it, that's a big problem. But, that's one. Second point I'd like to just kind of tie into our discussion is these problems of supply chain. There are a lot of external factors, but 80% of the problem amplification happens inside the four walls of a company, right? And really the opportunities are, we can't control what we can't control, but we can control. So I always find that the most valuable part, what can we do inside a company with our partners, right? And the third and more immediate topic for today is the whole digital twin discussion that we're going to have. And for those of you who are not familiar, a digital twin is not an ERP system or a CRM system. I just will choose Gartner's description of a digital twin to kick this off today. They describe it in the industry, digital twin of an organization, or DTO as they call it, is a dynamic model of an organization that relies on operational and other data to understand how the organization operationalizes its business model, connects with its current state, responds to changes, and deploys resources and delivers customer value. So I'll kind of make that my brief start. And maybe I'll go back to Jan. First and foremost, Jan, I would love to have you comment on your experience, in your broad history with digital twin, how you use it in Lockheed Martin, and what kind of problems does it help you address? Right? That would be great to hear from you.
Yes. So we are using, within Lockheed, we are using digital twins extensively, not just in the supply chain, but we are also using them, of course, in manufacturing. We're using them in the product development phases. So we are using model-based analytics in many phases. But yes, also in the supply chain. The supply chain, we are looking at automatic tracking of certain KPIs, performance, quality, all these types of things. We are also looking at ways of finding out how we can optimize the supply chain. What would be the best supplier for a certain set of parts? Again, KPIs are really important in that, but there's other stuff that plays into that. So how to deal with orders, how to plan them, how to deal with them. Many our models are underpinning those types of decisions. So we would have a insight-based analysis tool that helps the human do their job more efficiently and better. So we are definitely working in that space. But that brings up an interesting issue, in my opinion, and that is that the word digital twin alludes to something in the singular, which I believe is problematic. We are like talking about the digital twin of the supply chain. I think that is the wrong way of looking at the digital twin. In my opinion, it is not the digital twin. It is about digital twinning, as I keep saying it. We have to look at the use cases. So we are looking at analytics use cases. Because basically you only need the model be as accurate as the use case you want to build on top of it. And for that, you don't necessarily have to have a complete model of your supply chain. You may have to just have a portion of it modeled, and you can actually already get value out of it. There's a lot of people that believe I don't have a complete digital twin, and therefore I can't get value out of it. And I disagree with that. There are use cases, you build a model around that, you do your simulation, you get your actual data back. So to me, it is the whole digital twin idea is a conglomeration of use cases. So you have multiple use cases that you actually are executing that are helping your people to make value, and all of them are valuable. And, eventually you'll get to higher level use cases that are trying to do a complete simulation of your complete supply chain. But on the way there, you've executed many very, very valuable use cases, and we should not underestimate how much value those individual use cases put on the bottom line. And that's what we're also now starting to realize. It's not the singular digital twin. We just have to execute use cases that bring value. Now, when we look at those individual use cases, then we are starting to find problems, and that is those use cases are usually very intertwined with the tools that are behind it. So the problem is very specifically, so I have this use case, for example, to optimize how to place a part. What is the best vendor to place a part? Well, that's all very much done within the realms of like a tool like SAP. There's other tools that are involved in that. And so for one side of the business to be able to do that, they can do that. But the other side of the business that doesn't have these tools, they just can't take it. They just can't take that. So we are seeing that there's a lot of really good use cases being developed. The problem is I had a very diverse company. We make fixed wing aircraft, we make rotary wing, we make spacecraft, which is another whole different world. We make helicopters, missiles, fire control systems. Really the control systems of all these and they are complete different products requiring completely different tool sets to actually make them. And so what we're starting to find is that, yes, we're doing quite a bit of digital twinning, but where we're really having problems these days to scale these solutions across the corporation. So to take something we developed in the fixed wing, to take it to a rotary wing, for example, the tools, the specific tools behind the analytics are the problem, because the tools in a rotary wing are just different. They don't use SAP, they don't use our MES system, they don't use the same tool stack. So because of the analytic solutions being tool stack specific, we see a problem with scalability across our product line.
Interesting. So I think, so if I may, before kind of building on that, I'm walking away with the idea that you're seeing extraordinary benefits from a digital twin, but the incremental benefits are substantial, even if they are tied to specific use cases. That's one thing that I'm taking away. And the second thing that you're kind of talking about is, even though the incremental benefits, because different parts of the organization have different products, different use cases, and different data stacks, right? The ability to scale to those becomes a challenge, right? And so I think those are two things I'm taking away. If I may ask, what do you like about today's digital twin technology, right? As we talk about some of the things that are really positive.
Yeah, what I like about the promise of digital twinning, the promise of digital twinning is, in my opinion, a very high level of automation of the what I call the administrative task, the orchestration, if you will, all the paper pushing. To me, that is absolutely something that I think digital twinning will have a huge effect on. You know, the automation of orchestration. That doesn't mean, because a lot of people say that digital twinning will replace all the workers on my product lines, and the answer to that is absolutely not. Lockheed, as a corporation, we don't have the volume like a Ford or other corporations. We will always make, a satellite. You make quantity 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. That will never be a lights out production. That will always require people. But all the orchestration that goes around making these satellites or these fixed wing aircraft or these rotary wing aircraft, all the creation of shop orders, the creation of orders in the supply chain, all that, I think digital twinning is going to make major inroads into the automation. And therefore, I believe, and this is Jan's opinion, of course, this is not necessarily Lockheed Martin's opinion, but I believe that therefore the quality will also increase. So I foresee major progress in the orchestration, automation, plus the orchestration quality, meaning that it's clear what's being ordered. Much more clarity. They'll go model-based. I believe also that, for example, terms and conditions, they'll become model-based instead of right now prose-based, PDFs, where we're also always bickering with lawyers, what does a line mean? I believe that the future, for example, of a contract is model-based. I believe personally that it's going to be a SysML document. The future of a contract is a SysML document. Doing it through SysML will majorly improve communications between the computer systems, and therefore the humans don't have to interpret that anymore. And so contracts will be SysML. Specification standards, we see it in the standard world right now. They're starting to become SysMLs to make sure that all these interpretations are something that they can feed a automated system that can then get their requirements out of it. So I think the digital twin, the drive towards modeling, is going to be extremely important for orchestration, and then the quality of all the tasks that are around orchestration. I believe that there is less of pressure to have that basically make your shop become completely automated. That is an ROI decision, right? Making your shop,
No, Jan, I think very, very critical point here, and maybe just to share a point of view. I think the two things you're talking about, one is the fact that these solutions are very incremental, and there's a lot of incremental benefit, right? If we can we can solve one problem for one user. There's probably a lot of value in it right there, right? We don't need to. But the other same time, if the solution has to be hard coded for every particular instance, there's no natural, I'll call it advantage, right? The first time I do it for one product, taking to the second product, it should be substantially lower cost, or the third product, right? That creates scalability, so that the same information or the same template can help accelerate. That would be the scalability, I think. So the implementation is incremental, but it provides you the flexibility. That's what we are finding, right, with some of the work we are doing. But and therefore, having that common language of a business, every company seems like has a common language, a dictionary, even if they make multiple products. When that is available to everybody, it seems to bring everybody together, right? And that incremental becomes scalable. So that's one observation to your point. And I think to your other point, I absolutely agree with you that the power of digital twins is not the one twin of one, but the ability to connect digital twins together, right? In our world, the way we think about it, even the person who is the most important player is also a digital twin, right? He's got an avatar inside this thing. And if we can empower the person, right, to be able to see things that he needs to see, that's the use case, right? Be able to think about what is going on, right? And it's the data and his point of view can come together, which is where the language becomes important, and actually work together, right, with other people and other partners and suppliers and trade distributors. All of a sudden, that ability to see, think, and work together where data is provided in their context, right, on an as-needed basis. I think we reduce a lot of waste. I think that's where you were going. So it is much more than just automating the non-value added activities and empowering people to do more. I think that's, am I lining up with what you are thinking about? And the incrementalism to scalability to empowering people as a foundational approach to that you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. People, you're absolutely right. People also have digital twins, and to me, with that digital data that you have on the humans, on people, you again can build use cases on top of that. You can build cognitive systems that augment their decision making, and again, that is exactly the waste in the orchestration. That is where I think we're going to see major improvements because of digital twinning. Again, all the orchestration around all the tasks. I believe that's where this is going. We're going to get much better decision making. We're empowering, like you're saying, we're empowering the humans. We're not necessarily taking them out everywhere, but of course, where people are shuffling paper, that's relatively unnecessary. Yes, there will be automation that will change their job. Change the way they do their job. If they need to find another job. But it is the real decision making where humans really need to make. So the digital twinning will bring them options to look at, and then humans can make a decision much easier. They have much more data. So that they can quicker make the decisions, and the decisions are likely to be better, reducing all the waste that we currently have.
And I tell you, this is, again, Guha's view of the world. So I believe that people are so amazingly intelligent, right? We underestimate how, when they see things, they, think about things, and they can work together with each other. All this information is a multiplier for them, right? And I think that is what we see as the true power. And I think, I think from a digital twin standpoint, we really think it's important that companies identify the right partner, right? That they can know from a technology and understand that can unleash their potential. That's what we are really, right? Which that's foundationally, and also, clearly accessing data from different systems is a challenge, but to the extent we make that simpler, that should not be the end all or be all of the problem, right? As you said, it's the data is great, but having an ability to deliver it to people makes it powerful. That's the use case side of things. I think that's where the real value is, giving them the insights, the recommendations that allows them to look at options, right? That I think is a second thing. I think so. The really interesting questions that we are thinking about is, and maybe a question back to you. This is not just about even the four walls of procurement or manufacturing or distribution and logistics. It goes to the partners, right? How do you connect your suppliers so they can participate in your process safely and securely, right? So as you think about that, how do you think about the future, if I may, over the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see digital twins in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, again, in the shorter term, I see all kind of use cases, very big use cases coming that supply us with value. I think then in the medium term, massive orchestration improvements, automation improvements. But longer term, like you're saying, these use cases are all going to work together to create what I call either prescriptive or actually maybe even eventually cognitive systems. So the first step in the long-term vision, in my opinion, is that we will start to have all these prescriptive these assistants, right? We develop these cognitive assistants, maybe wearable. We had Google Glass, 10 years ago. Everybody loves to laugh at it, but I think that was a really good first try. I think there will be wearable assistants that are following certain tasks you're doing, and as you are going, suggesting approaches to you. So you need to place an order. The wearable assistant basically constantly communicates to you, like Alexa. Hopefully not as annoying, but in a way we will probably figure out how these cognitive assistants communicate with you, and they kind of lead you through the process as quickly as possible. They also bring all kind of angles to it, insights that they have in the big data world. They boil them down to insights that are going to be blurbs that are either going to be on your computer screen or the assistants will talk to you, and that type of like empower you named it perfectly, empowering the individual. That will be probably the 5 to 10 year step. Now, when you do that, then you instantly have to think about what is the next step, right? Is the system really good enough to go cognitive? When is the system going to be at the point where it behaves like hell and says, like, in the movie, Space 2001: The Space Odyssey? Mm-hmm. When is it going to say, I can't let you do that, Dave? Where is it going to be cognitive enough where it will be able to autonomously make those tasks? I think that's probably even further down the line, because then we need to have AI. We need to trust the AI. These issues around trust. But I think eventually you could foresee a future where many of the tasks will go beyond prescriptive, and they will move towards a world where many of these are going to be cognitive, where the current prescriptive task, but that all revolves around trust. How much do we trust the AI we're going to develop? How much do we trust these analytics use cases that we're going to develop to actually make independent decisions? That is probably longer than 10 years. I believe that major decisions will not be made by AI within the next decade, maybe even the next 2 decades. But eventually, we'll be faced with the task that, yes, the AI can probably do that. And The question will be, should we have the AI do that? But that's a different question. That's.
Yeah, I think if I may, I'm just going to go off on the side here just for a second. When we started with our work, we called it a cognitive problem, right? Because supply chains are created by people in a specific language in the way they think about their business. So it's really a supply chain exists as a network only because people think of it that way, right? And we are very, very good in our cognitively, we build networks in our head, right? And we can easily build networks, trees. And so there's a reason why businesses end up that way is because people think that way, not the other way around, right? Very often. Now, I just kind of use the word cognitive, and I always use the word recognitive, which is when we say recognitive, we recognize something, right? I may look at something and I say, this is a bottle. I know that. I recognize something. So that's the cognitive principle is, can I see something and recognize it as a pattern, right? This is a bottle. This is a stock out in a factory, or, right? This is right? So I think the question is, if I understand the language of the person and the way how he communicates and thinks, can I use this data to give him recognitive skills? That means I can tell him this seems like, right? This could cause a stock out. Because people are not very good with data, they are extremely creative about problem solving. So if we can give them the data complement and the recognitive skills, we able to do much more than we can imagine. They'll come up with better solutions than we can. And that is where I think the two come together. But I think this is very, very interesting, your point of view about the ability to kind of, I call it creating models, right? Which is the word Gartner uses, at a micro level. You said, I need a model of a contract. But that model of a contract is synthesized with the model of maybe a person or a model of a factory, right? Mm-hmm. But each of these models are wired together in a common thing. So a person in this can actually look across the models, right, and operate. So I really like that whole thing. But I guess from our standpoint, what we are sensing is that this digital twin idea has 3 or 4 levels, but one is connecting data, right? But connecting the process that people use the data for, which is not necessarily to transactional, but horizontally. But third is connecting people, right? And the fourth is connecting partners in the business network. So maybe coming at it from that point, as you look at the future, what do you think would be the biggest obstacles to using, right, this technology in terms of objection and adoption? Any thought there?
Yeah. That I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that, actually. And now you got to understand that I'm coming from a background of discrete part manufacturing, right? We don't make toothpaste or paper. We're not a large producer of one commodity in high volume. We produce products, 5 or 6 a month for a couple of years, and then we make another product. So we're very discrete in the parts that we manufacture. The discrete parts that we manufacture are relatively low volume. So you're seeing me, pretty quickly, that's my default setting about speaking about these things. But looking at that, I start to see that the solutions, again, I want to go back to the scalability issue. I see a lot of these solutions, again, are bright objects. And we're very good. That's where we are today. We are very good at creating these bright objects. If you define a use case, I internally did one recently where we pulled human resources data back, with manufacturing data. We had so many different data sources we pulled together, and we came up with some very, very, very powerful insights. And we demonstrated that, and that was very, very successful. And we demonstrated that very specifically on one of our fixed wing product lines. So then the rotary wing people saw that, and the rotary wing people said, oh, we really love that. We like to have that. And so we said, well, it cost us, let's say $1 million to do it for fixed wing. Guess what? You're going to get it for the new price of $990,000. Really, it was the same when you've brought it up before. So scalability of these solutions, and so what happened is the rotary wing group, since it didn't scale from fixed wing to rotary, they started from scratch and developed their own solution. And that is where short term we have the problem. And so where I have been working hard on that problem is on actually standardization. In order for us to be really successful in sharing data, we will require our supply chain to communicate with us through standardized data artifacts. We cannot just get a Excel spreadsheet or a PDF that tells me a couple of things about your operation. No, I have to have you communicate with me through very well-controlled international standards, because I don't want to because if I develop a Lockheed Martin standard, guess what Boeing is going to do next? And we're going to have 15 different standards. We can't have that either. So I think the only way forward is I can ask a supplier to put their data in an ISO standard format. The vendor is not going to be, or the supplier is not going to be happy if it needs to be in an obscure Lockheed Martin type format. So we've been looking at what we're getting back from the supply chain, and we are trying to come up with an ecosystem of standards that is going to be required for them to kind of fit into. But this ecosystem of standards is based on ISO standards, not on Lockheed Martin produced pros. And so that is where I think the major development is going to come in, where scalability, interoperability, if you will, is happening. And so we, for example, back to your special language, we are developing a common data model that we're going to use within Lockheed Martin. We are very active in many of the different ontology efforts that are out there. We're using BFO a lot, the basic foundational ontology. We're building our own ontologies, manufacturing ontologies on top of that, all using standards. We do not, we use BFO, CCO, the current interoperability one that's out there. I throw a blank, of course, but there are many that are out there, and we develop our own. On top of those ontologies, we've developed our own standardized library of that we're going to use here. And I think if you do that, if you adopt international standards or push the international standards to become much more interoperable than what they are today, I think we're going to create an ecosystem that suppliers can easily tap into. But if we are making that a Lockheed Martin specific ecosystem, then we're not gonna get the success that we need, because then it's just going to be too expensive for the supply chain to fit in.
Yeah.
But the supply chain will have to start to understand that data artifacts are going to be deliverables to Lockheed Martin. There is no way around it. We need data artifacts, and they need to be usable. And for that, I will tell you what I want them to be, but I'm going to try to make sure that those data artifacts are all based on international standards, not on something that Lockheed came up with.
So, no, this is very interesting, and I'm kind of going to pick off on a couple of very interesting ideas that you talked about, right? One thing that you said is this idea of objects, right? It's interesting for me that
that's what it is.
Yeah. We all live in material supply chains. We move products around, parts around, right? We make products, right? Some of them are, but it's really whether we can create this digital abstraction of a product, of the objects, right? It could be a shipping notice. It means something to us as an object, right? So being able to create those objects. Now, I think coming back to your point, I think the objective, what we are seeing is that if we can, we've kind of taken a slightly different approach, right? Where we are trying to see that every system has its own, I'll call it tagging language in their database, right? As you go from one ERP to a CRM to different systems, they tag their data, right?
Yep.
So we have tried to create something that allows us to create, like, think of it as a translator, right? A translator between the company's object vocabulary and that. That simplifies our ability to synthesize data dramatically, right? It's actually, exponentially reduces the cost. So we are able to pull information from multitude of ERP systems using the language of that business. But even as we do it, we articulate what the standardized semantic interfaces are for all the suppliers and the dealers. So that has, in terms of basically making it scalable, right? That has been a very powerful advantage for the approach we have seen. But I think coming back to your point, I think we are really experimenting with this idea. I think we are all experimenting with this idea of going digital, not data, right? And creating a digital representation of everything that we deal with. I think that's a very interesting thing. And so we have to abstract these digitals out of the traditional ERP, and different systems so we can weave them together. But so it should be able to reach into our databases, use their language, and populate our digital models, right? So that we can collaborate, we can see, think, and work together, kind of thing. I think the big risks that can be in the area of data integration. That's the first, I think, the big problem, right? Second is simplifying it for usability, as you called it, the use cases, where there is value and it's easy for people to consume. I think that's the second, area that I think you're talking about. And the third one is, getting a one win, can I multiply and scale it, right? To new people, to new products, to new use cases. And each time, can it be 50, 60% faster, less expensive to do? And that creates the true ability for it to grow virally and bring people together, right? I think that's the third thing you're talking about. And I think these are all areas where, without having to be the ERP system, can it still provide a single source of, I'll call it, truth or connectivity, right? That cognitive reality that a whole organization can work with, even if it's built one piece at a time. I think that is a very interesting point you made. But I think this thing that's very interesting for me is the idea that we all have about our business is often not very complex, right? When we think about the businesses we run, the business is not complex. The idea is not complex, right? The execution gets fragmented to the point where it creates complexity. So I think what would be powerful is, can we bring that complexity to the world of elegance that the human brain naturally creates, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I'll stop there. But I think, Ben, one last question from my standpoint. So if you look at this in the context of Lockheed Martin, if I use the word loosely, transformation journey, right? How do you see the digital twin technology as a, in that area, right? Just curious.
Yeah, I believe that the digital twin will fundamentally change the way we're going to do business, not just purely technical, but I think the biggest issue that we're going to be faced with is the cultural aspect of the change. The one that we really need to manage in the future is that people don't get the wrong perception. But when they hear about digital transformation today, they think about, I'm going to lose my job. And what's happening is we've been hearing that for the last 50 years, right? And here we are. We can't get any people. So that's not it. But how are we going to change the culture of an organization in a way that it maximum takes advantage of the insights offered by all these use cases, these digital twin use cases? So that to me is can the development, the cultural development of the organization, like you're saying, the people, right? How are they going to accept? How are you going to bring those changes to them so that they can take full advantage, so that we have the maximum amount of payback, right? Because in the end, it's all about dollars and cents. It's one thing to come up with use cases, but if they don't make you any money, then what did you gain? But it's that bringing them to the people so that you can start to maximize your feedback. That is, to me, one of the biggest things that we, Lockheed Martin, are after. We are, internally already starting to address the cultural issues that are surrounding digital twinning, because we can almost we feel that it may still take decades, but we feel we can overcome the technical. It's not as if we're already done all of it, but technically we can argue that we can actually overcome those issues. It is, how are we going to have our people make maximum use of it? Training, communications, that is already by us recognized as probably one of the obstacles that we need to come down with for the next couple of years. So that's what we're focusing on.
No, that's an interesting problem. I've been around the industry with various companies over the last 25, 30 years. And I will tell you that, the first 5 to 7 years of my life, I was a technocrat. I thought I could solve every problem.
Everything with
Then I realized that's not working. It's really a business problem. Oh, it's all about process and everything else. I think it took me a few years to figure out it's really all about people, right?
Yep.
It's everything
all
is about people, right?
Culture.
And humanization, right? So now we talk about the greatest transformations we have seen, whether it's the iPhone or the web. They brought things to serve people, and people felt empowered by it, right? And so it is not about changing the way people think, do, or behave. It's actually about enabling them to do what they want to do more of, right? And every person in every company that I've worked with really wants to do something extraordinary. They really do, right? How do we do that? So that's why we always like our little Iron Man suit, because it's empowering people, right? It's just more interesting. So that's one thing. The second thing I think you're bringing up is that the failure modes. We've all tried transformations. I think the failure modes of transformation here are being able to synthesize data is a big failure mode, right? Because it's in so many discrete forms. But really synthesizing in an elegant way the different, I'll call it the connections, right, between functions. You don't need to do everything, the 20% that's high value, connecting them together so people can do more. The people and the process connectivity is a big deal. But I think, turning this complexity that companies have, the real transformation is turning that complexity into competitive advantage, right? Having worked with a lot of companies, the automotive and different industries, the fact that you have a supplier that you have had 30-year relationship that makes something for you, that itself is a competitive advantage, right? So all these relationships that you have as a company, how do I turn that complexity which has, right? If I can turn that on its side, connect it to people and the partners, I think, and we can do that with a digital twin, create that common vocabulary for them to work with. I feel like that's where we have failed, on transformations. Maybe a little bit of our experiment is, can we change the way we play it, right? From a point of view of, but those are some of my thoughts. Any closing comments, John, from your side? Jan, from your side?
No. You're voicing more in detail what I was saying, and so I want to thank you. I thought this was a really wonderful conversation. I as usual, learned again. Yeah, so I think this was a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you and the team for setting this up, and I hope that the audience really also learned something from our discussion here.
Yeah, this is a little bit of what we are doing is the futurescaping, right? Hopefully making the world a little bit better for everybody as we go. So I really appreciate it. And I think I want to thank the team from IQPC. And I guess if they have any questions or something, you guys can use the links and the email to get to, connect back. So thank you, Jan, and look forward to more of this good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Guha and Jan, for this very informative discussion. I'd also like to thank everyone watching, wherever you are, for taking the time to listen in today. If you'd like to listen to today's sessions again, or any of the sessions presented, they will be available on demand shortly. I'd also like to encourage you to check out more of our on-demand webinars and upcoming digital events by going to www.industrialtransformationnetwork.com/events. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.